Support for this podcast comes from listeners and St. Alphonsus Health System, a regional network of hospitals, clinics, and care providers. St. Alphonsus offers comprehensive healthcare services to individuals and families throughout the community. More information about services and locations is available at stalphonsus.org.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. This morning, we will tell you why a group of Idaho legislators are in the nation's capital today looking for help to build a massive new dam in eastern Idaho. We'll also profile Idaho's new millennial mayor. It is Monday, the 17th of November. Here we go with today's stories. Questions continue to mount in the wake of the announcement that Idaho, specifically the Mountain Home Air Force Base, will be hosting military personnel from the nation of Qatar. Soon after the Trump White House announced that Qtari military personnel would be training in Idaho, elected officials, including the governor and Idaho's congressional delegation, said they were caught off guard by the announcement. And then late last week, members of the state legislature's Committee on Federalism expressed their concern. Here are State Senator Cindy Carlson and House Representative Dale Hawkins.
Thank you. I just want to go on record that I have concerns about this process and aligning ourselves with a known country of sponsoring terrorism.
I'm getting dozens and dozens and dozens of emails and phone calls of great concern that we are yoking ourselves and bringing people here that have been speculated to be a major funder of terrorism in other parts of the world.
Mountain Home Air Force Base Wing Commander Colonel David Gunter told the committee that, yes, there would be vetting of Qatari military personnel and family members if they were to join them in Mountain Home.
I'm confident members who come here will be vetted appropriately. And in my interactions with the Qataris in my deployments, nothing but being impressed with their professionalism and their ability to execute the mission.
The Secretary of Defense, now known as the Secretary of War, says Qataris could arrive at Mountain Home by the year 2030, and their numbers could increase to around 300 personnel. A federal judge here in Idaho ruled last year that a domestic protection order against an East Idaho man unfairly violated his Second Amendment right to bear arms. That ruling was recently overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Troy Oppie has details.
Ryan Van Dyke had already violated a no-contact order against him when he walked into the Bingham County Courthouse 2 years ago with a gun in his bag. He was charged with felony illegal gun possession, but successfully argued before Idaho District Judge Lynn Windmill that Second Amendment rights can still apply even when charged with a crime, and that he wasn't deemed a credible threat against the protectee, so his gun rights should not have been taken away.
The whole standard by which courts view issues with regard to whether or not the Second Amendment right to bear arms has been violated changed as recently as 2022.
That's McKay Cunningham, professor and director of the Master of Applied Public Policy program at the College of Idaho in Caldwell. He refers to a Supreme Court ruling in a concealed carry gun rights case from New York State, an opinion that changed how many Second Amendment cases are argued.
If you can't tell from the plain text of the Second Amendment, you need to look to a historical analog. What are the traditions in history jurisprudentially with regard to that particular question?
The Supreme Court used those questions last year in another case similar to the one in Idaho. United States versus Rahimi said, yes, there is a well-documented history of keeping certain people from possessing weapons. That ruling was issued shortly after Judge Windmill declared Van Dyke's rights had been violated.
And so the Ninth Circuit says, yeah, Judge Windmill may have been correct, but we think that our analysis of Rahimi shows that it's a little more broad.
The Ninth Circuit found that just because there is no court order explicitly identifying Van Dyke, the East Idaho man, as dangerous, did not mean he wasn't a threat or a potential threat, and that was enough to meet legal tradition for disarmament. Van Dyke's indictment for illegal possession of a firearm is reinstated. The case will return to Idaho District Judge Lynn Windmill. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
A team of Idahoans is in the nation's capital today. They're asking lawmakers there to dig into their memory banks and recall one of the biggest disasters in Idaho history. It was June of 1976 when the Teton Dam suffered a catastrophic failure. House Representative Rod Furness is a native of eastern Idaho. He was 16 years old when the dam collapsed.
11 lives were lost that day. There were over $400 million of property damage. 771 homes were destroyed. 3,000 homes were damaged. 16,000 livestock were lost that day.
So that delegation will be meeting with Idaho's congressional delegation today and tomorrow. And the big ask is that they're urging federal agencies to help Idaho with additional water storage solutions, including the possibility of rebuilding a new Teton Dam. It has now been a couple of weeks since the election, and indeed results are being canvassed, which is to say verified by county commissioners across Idaho. The news in the city of Moscow was particularly interesting this election season as voters chose a new chief executive for their city. Indeed, she is to be Moscow's first millennial mayor. Brian Vega is with Northwest Public Broadcasting.
32-year-old Haley Lewis has been elected as Moscow's new mayor. She's lived in the city for most of her life.
I love this town and I love the opportunity to serve and represent.
Lewis ran against Alex Simon, a former Boeing engineer. She received nearly 70% of the votes. Lewis wants the city to have sustainable growth and a more connected community.
I'm interested in bringing a new generation's perspective and to bridge that gap between our student population and people who may feel fondness for Moscow but don't know how to make space for or stay here with people who have made the decision to retire here or raise a family here.
She previously served on Moscow's City Council for 4 years. I'm Brian Vega in Moscow, Idaho.
And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. We'll see you back here Tuesday. You can stay in touch with the news anytime by visiting BoiseStatePublicRadio.org, or you can always download the free Boise State Public Radio app. For now, from me to you, thanks for listening.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.